Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I'm going to tell you about a neighbor who wanted to get inside my house. I'm not a morning person by any stretch, so when my front doorbell shrieked at 6:58 a.m. on a fog-thick Saturday, my first impulse was to let whoever it was dissolve back into the mist. Unfortunately, the ringer's fingers had the persistence of a woodpecker on Red Bull, so I trudged downstairs in sweatpants and socks that didn't match. The screen on my foyer wall flashed a thumbnail from the porch camera. Roland, our shiny domed head of the HOA Architectural Committee, standing there with a clipboard tucked under one elbow, tapping one foot hard enough to jiggle the brass eagle door knocker. I had moved into the neighborhood barely 10 months earlier, but even in that short time I'd learned that Roland treated the bylaws like scripture and the rest of us like delinquent altar boys. I cracked the heavy oak door just an inch, chain still latched. "Morning, Roland. Something on fire?" I asked, hoping sarcasm would shoo him away faster than coffee. "Scheduled interior inspection," he announced, flipping a page as though producing Holy Writ. "Every home built in Phase 3 needs attic photographs for roof truss verification. You should have received the memo." I hadn't. More importantly, interior inspections were purely voluntary. Our HOA covenants covered lawns, fences, paint colors, external aesthetics to protect community standards. Nothing in the fine print gave the HOA skip tracer privileges inside private residences. I told him so, politely but firmly. Roland's lips pinched. "The board has authority to ensure structural safety. You could have mold. You could have hazardous wiring." His eyes slid over my shoulder as though expecting sparks. I resisted the juvenile urge to flick the foyer light off and on just to watch him flinch. "Not today," I said. "I have plans." My plans involved pancakes and a couch, but that was my business. Before he could launch another clause-quoting salvo, I shut the door and threw the deadbolt. I'd barely made it 3 steps toward the kitchen when my exterior cameras lit up the tablet again. Roland pacing the porch, phone glued to his ear, gesturing with melodramatic chops of his free hand. I cued the audio. He was on a 911 call, breathless, telling the dispatcher he feared for my safety because he'd heard shouting and crashing after I slammed the door and suspected possible domestic violence. If my coffee-deprived brain needed a jumpstart, that did it. I opened the live view from all 4 angles: porch, driveway, side gate, and backyard. No shouting, no crashing. Unless he meant my heart rate after hearing that whopper. 10 minutes later, 2 cruisers rolled up, blues muted but unmistakable. The officers approached with the wary courtesy reserved for uncertain scenes. I met them on the porch holding up my phone. "Good morning, officers. Before we start, everything on my property is recorded, video and audio. You're on camera now." I played back the last 5 minutes. Roland's fantasy report. My silent foyer. The senior officer watched, jaw flexing. Roland hovered behind them, trying to peek at the screen. "I only reported what I thought I heard," he stammered. I was concerned. "Nobody screamed except my coffee maker," I said. The younger officer coughed into his fist. Protocol required a cursory walkthrough to confirm no victim lay unconscious. I agreed, because transparency beats suspicion. They found nothing but my golden retriever Biscuit, wagging so hard she collided with a side table. The officers left with apologies and a promise to note the false report in the call log. Roland slunk back to his house 3 doors down, cheeks blotched garnet. I thought that would be the end, but by Monday the rumor mill spun faster than a Florida hurricane. An anonymous post on the community message board claimed the police had been called to my problem home and that I'd refused a legally required inspection. The post didn't mention Roland by name, but the phrasing dripped with his brand of bureaucratic perfume. Replies piled up, some curious, some judgmental, one from a neighbor named Ivy defending me. I didn't respond, keyboard wars aren't my sport, but I archived screenshots. Evidence, evidence, evidence. The following Friday, I received a certified envelope stamped with our HOA logo. Inside, a notice of violation for failure to comply with safety inspection request, carrying a $350 fine. Payable within 15 days to avoid lien proceedings. My pulse did a drum solo. They couldn't be serious. I brewed tea instead of coffee, fewer jitters for reading legalese, and spread the covenants across my kitchen island. 43 pages, double-sided. I highlighted every clause about inspections. External only. Voluntary interior inspections with 72 hours written notice. No fines authorized for refusal. Whoever drafted the violation either hadn't read the bylaws or banked on homeowners never reading them. I scanned the return address on the envelope. HOA Management Solutions, P.O. Box in a city 2 states away. Outsourced. That meant our board, a ragtag trio led by Roland, fed information to a management company that auto-generated fines like parking tickets. The company probably never verified anything beyond the board's say-so. That night, Ivy knocked on my door holding a plate of double chocolate cookies. "Peace offering," she said. "I figured you could use carbs." She stepped inside and lowered her voice. "Roland pulled the same stunt on me last year, said my attic vent looked warped and needed inspection. I told him no. 2 days later, citation for non-compliant exterior paint. My house was repainted 6 months earlier." She shrugged. "I paid it because court sounded worse." Ivy's story confirmed my suspicion. Roland weaponized bylaws to intimidate. Some neighbors paid, others folded gaudier flags of submission, installing Roland-approved landscaping or repainting shutters just to avoid hassle. But I'm wired differently. I grew up with a public defender mom who treated dinner like moot court, and a carpenter dad who taught me that structures, wooden or legal, are only as strong as the nails you choose. I decided to swing both hammers. Step 1, gather data. My exterior cameras already archived every HOA encounter. I pulled the 911 call report using the state's open records portal, paid the $10 fee, and received the transcript in my inbox the next afternoon. Reading Roland's dramatized account, complete with invented smashing glass, made my stomach lurch, but also fueled resolve. Filing a false police report is a misdemeanor in our state, sometimes a felony if resources are diverted. Step 2, talk to neighbors quietly. Not a pitchfork parade, just coffees, dog walk chats, post-mailbox waves turned into longer conversations. Each story had a familiar refrain. Arbitrary citations, thinly veiled threats of liens, Roland showing up unannounced to inspect, a few hush-hush that he'd demanded to enter while their kids were home alone, spooking them. Everyone complained. No one organized. Step 3, read the bylaws again, this time like a chessboard. The board could be recalled by petition of 30% of homeowners, doable if people trusted the process, and fines became uncollectible if contested in small claims court and deemed outside the covenant's scope. Roland's scheme thrived on apathy more than authority. While I strategized, Roland doubled down. A second letter arrived, raising the fine to $700 plus administrative fees. I filed it with the first. Then, late one Wednesday, a notice taped to my front door, caught on camera of course, informed me of a mandatory compliance hearing scheduled at Roland's own residence. Nice try. The bylaws required hearings to be held in a neutral community space. I didn't attend the kangaroo court. Instead, I emailed the management company, board members, and HOA attorney of record, a woman named Devon whose signature appeared on architectural approval forms. I attached copies of the bylaws, the 911 transcript, video stills, and a concise timeline. My tone was calm but pointed. The board president's false statements to law enforcement and retaliatory fines constituted harassment and potential civil liability. I requested immediate dismissal of all citations and a formal apology posted to the same community board used to defame me. Silence. For 2 weeks, I visualized them huddled like poker players, waiting to see if I'd fold. During that lull, another subplot surfaced. Ivy's younger brother Milo caught Roland trespassing at 10 p.m., flashlight in hand, photographing Milo's detached garage from inches away. Milo confronted him. Roland claimed he was verifying fence height. Cameras recorded everything. I helped Milo upload the clip to a private folder. Piece by piece, Roland was building his own gallows. One rainy evening, a thick, buff-colored envelope arrived by certified mail, this time from the HOA's legal counsel, not the management company. The tone shifted. Notice of pending litigation hold. It demanded I preserve all relevant evidence related to the events of May 7th, the 911 call, and subsequent communications. They were placing me on notice in anticipation of potential claims, a scare tactic. But civil discovery is a 2-lane road. If they sued, I could countersue for harassment, emotional distress, false light. I sat on my couch, Biscuit's head on my knee, and considered possible moves. The original problem wasn't personal. Roland wielded power like a toddler with scissors, hurting everyone indiscriminately. But the escalation was now personal. He'd abused emergency services, smeared my reputation, and threatened litigation to seize my silence. Enough. I drafted an open letter to all homeowners, carefully avoiding inflammatory language. I laid out facts, false emergency report, citations violating bylaws, evidence of pattern behavior, paragraph citations for every rule. To avoid accusations of defamation, I attached supporting documents and encouraged residents to verify. I ended with a call, signed the enclosed petition for a special meeting to elect an interim board, and commission an external audit of fines levied the past 5 years. Petitions required signatures from 30% of the 212 homeowners, 64. I printed 90 copies at the local print shop, tossed them in manila envelopes with pens and prepaid return labels, and spent a Saturday hand-delivering them. Camera recording from my ball cap brim the whole time, for transparency. By Tuesday, envelopes trickled back faster than I dared hope. Some neighbors scribbled thank you notes. One attached a homemade banana bread. Word traveled. The new guy, the one Roland tried to paint as trouble, was offering an exit ramp from HOA tyranny. Ivy organized a coffee meetup at her place. 30 people showed. We compared citations, pooled evidence. Roland had levied over $25,000 in fines the past 2 years, averaging 118 citations annually, far above similarly sized HOAs statewide. The day I crossed the 60-signature threshold, the management company's director left me a voicemail edged with frost. He urged me to reconsider divisive actions and warned that undermining the board compromises property values. I saved the message in the cloud. That night, a motion-triggered floodlight captured Roland lurking near my side fence, phone raised. I stepped onto the porch and spoke loudly so the mic picked up. "Evening, Roland. Trespass is a civil tort in our state. Need help finding the sidewalk?" He spun on his heel and vanished between hedges. The petition deadline loomed. Homeowners could demand a special meeting within 15 days of submission. I organized packets for delivery via certified mail to the management company and each board member individually. Ivy helped stuff envelopes. Milo kept Biscuit entertained by tossing squeaky toys across the living room. We triple-checked signatures. 72, well above threshold. We mailed them on a breezy Wednesday morning. The clerk at the post office raised an eyebrow at the stack. "Big day?" she asked. "Just taking out the trash," I said. She laughed, stamping each envelope thunk, thunk, thunk. 2 days later, Roland's final card hit the table. A pale yellow notice appeared on my door claiming $1,400 now due and announcing intent to place a lien if unpaid within 10 days. I scanned it, smiled, and slid it into my expanding folder, because that piece of paper, misdated and citing clauses that didn't exist, would swing the nail home. I was deep-diving case law late Saturday when Biscuit barked at the door. Ivy stood on the porch, wind-tossed hair hiding half her face. "You need to see this," she said, handing me her phone. On the neighborhood board, Roland had posted a scathing rebuttal to malicious agitators distributing fraudulent petitions, claiming I doctored the bylaws and forged signatures. He threatened police involvement for mail fraud. Ivy shook her head. "He's unraveling." I thanked her, then typed a short reply. My first ever on that board. All homeowners will receive certified copies of the original bylaws and notarized signature pages by Monday. All evidence has been provided to the HOA's own attorney, law enforcement, and, should it prove necessary, local media. Ask for the footage. I logged off. No more keyboard war. The next battle would be waged in conference rooms and, if needed, courtrooms. Sunday evening, I sorted documents into 3 binders: evidence, bylaws, timeline. I slid them into a backpack with 3 USB drives containing mirrored data. Biscuit sighed at my feet, sensing tension. "Almost done," I told her. Outside, thunder muttered. In storybooks, storms foreshadow trouble. In reality, they're just weather. Bad analogies belong to amateur storytellers. I planned that tomorrow would be business, not drama. At precisely 9:05 a.m. Monday, I stepped into the conference room of the local library, the neutral venue specified by state HOA statutes for special meetings, if the governing documents lacked detail. A dozen homeowners were already seated, murmuring over styrofoam cups. Devon, the HOA's attorney, stood near the projector cart, face unreadable. She greeted me cordially but looked tired. An empty chair at the front table bore a folded name card. Roland. He never showed. Devon cleared her throat and announced that the board, lacking quorum and under advice of counsel, would voluntarily resign effective immediately and appoint an interim committee, comprised of 3 homeowners elected by majority vote at that meeting, to manage affairs until formal elections in 60 days. Gasps, whispers. then a swell of applause. She added, reading from a prepared statement, that all pending fines issued over the previous 12 months were suspended subject to independent review, and that any liens filed during that period would be released within 10 days. She did not mention Roland by name, but her eyes slid toward me when she spoke of false reports to law enforcement currently under investigation. And just like that, the king's crown rolled off the table. Outside, the storm had cleared. Sunlight struck puddles, turning them into sheets of blinding silver. Biscuit waited in the back seat of my Jeep, tail thumping the window when she saw me. I scratched her ears. "Ready to go home, girl? We've got a fence to upgrade, cameras to recalibrate, and a neighborhood to rebuild." We drove off, leaving the library and Roland's paper throne behind us. But the story wasn't over. Accountability is a marathon. Next steps: audit finances, pursue restitution, and maybe, just maybe, teach a tyrant what happens when you underestimate the quiet house on the corner with more cameras than front yard gnomes. My phone buzzed. Ivy texting a photo of neighbors gathering on her lawn, smiling, holding a poster that read, "We the homeowners." I texted back a thumbs up and turned onto my street, grateful nobody could see the watery grin spreading across my face. If Roland wanted to make me the villain, he'd miscast the role. I wasn't here to menace. I was here to renovate. And sometimes, before you can paint fresh walls, you have to tear out rotten studs. I parked, grabbed the backpack of evidence, and walked up the drive feeling lighter than any morning since that first doorbell shriek. The saga ahead would twist and knot. I knew lawsuits never untangled neatly, but for the first time, the fight felt winnable. The week after the board's resignation felt unreal, like the clink of a prison door opening after you'd forgotten freedom had a sound. Yet, liberation comes with chores, and ours began in the dusty meeting room of the local community college, where the interim committee, Milo, Ivy, and a mild-mannered engineer named Garrick, spread ledgers across 4 folding tables. I volunteered to help digitize piles of indistinct receipts that smelled faintly of Roland's aftershave. Every document was scanned, labeled, and dumped into a cloud folder so residents could read every cent of their dues. That transparency cracked the first hidden chamber. Nestled inside a manila folder marked Beautification Discretionary sat a string of invoices from a landscaping company in the next county, all billed on the 15th of every month for emergency topiary remediation. The amounts varied, $900 here, $1,350 there, but the signature was always the same, R, architectural chair. Curious, Garrick called the number printed on the letterhead. The owner, a genial grandfatherly voice, said his crew had never set foot in our subdivision. He'd been mowing Roland's personal yard for cash since the pandemic began. Evidently, Roland had invented a shell budget line, then laundered his own curb appeal through homeowner dues. While Garrick drafted a refund demand, Ivy and Milo traced another paper trail: legal consultation fees. Turns out Devin, the HOA attorney, had billed legitimate hours for routine filings, but 2/3 of the charges were duplicates. Roland had forwarded identical invoices to the management company, then again to a shadow legal contingency fund he controlled. Devin, shocked and apologetic, offered sworn affidavits and promised to testify if needed. The misappropriation ballooned to $58,472, enough to repave every cracked sidewalk and still hire a jazz quartet for the block party we all secretly dreamed of hosting. Word of the audit spread and trust blossomed where fear had lived. Kids chalked messages like, "Welcome homeowners" on the cul-de-sac. Retirees who once hid behind blinds walked biscuit while I sorted spreadsheets. Even the mail carrier commented on the lighter mood, noting he hadn't delivered a single violation postcard in days. Roland, meanwhile, went silent. His house lights stayed off most nights, mailbox uncollected. Rumors said he'd taken sick leave from his accounting job, citing stress-induced vertigo. I didn't wish illness on anybody, but vertigo seemed a fitting metaphor for a man whose moral compass spun so wildly. Parallel to the audit, the sheriff's office finished reviewing the 911 transcript and camera footage. Detective Lasher, a tall woman who spoke in deliberate syllables, called to inform me the district attorney had accepted a misdemeanor charge, false reporting to authorities, Class A. Roland would receive a summons, not cuffs. This wasn't TV. But the fine could hit $4,000 plus court costs, and a conviction might clip his professional license. I thanked Lasher, then asked if other neighbors' incidents mattered. She said any pattern elevated potential penalties. She'd welcome additional statements. Ivy and 4 others emailed witness accounts before sunset. 2 evenings later, I was lathering biscuit when a knock rattled my back door. Milo stood on the deck holding a thick envelope, eyebrows knitted. "Certified letter for you. The courier couldn't catch you, so he asked if I'd deliver." Inside was Roland's piece de resistance, a pro se civil complaint filed in small claims court accusing me, and, bafflingly, third-party conspirator Biscuit, K9, of defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and loss of consortium with homeowners' goodwill. He demanded $5,000 plus public retraction. The filing fee receipt stapled to the back proved he'd paid $200 to submit the 8-page tantrum. I laughed so hard Biscuit escaped mid-rinse and shook suds across my kitchen. But the suit needed answering. In our state, you've got 21 days to respond or face default judgment. Ivy knew a civil rights attorney, Caleb, who agreed to help pro bono publico after hearing the saga. Apparently, his mother's HOA once fined her for wind chimes. Caleb drafted a crisp reply denying all allegations and attaching 43 pages of exhibits. Roland's own online posts, the 911 report, Devon's affidavit, the bogus invoices, and copies of the bylaws he'd ignored. We countersued for slander, harassment, and abuse of process, seeking the same $5,000 plus fees. The clerk stamped the packet, court date set for 6 weeks out. While litigation simmered, life filled with smaller victories. The interim committee used reclaimed funds to hire an independent arborist, real, not on Roland's contact list, to inspect every old oak whose roots menaced sidewalks. He flagged 7 trees for trimming, 2 for removal, and praised the rest. Residents volunteered on a Saturday, hauling branches to a rented chipper while kids collected acorns for a school science project. Music floated from open garages. Someone grilled hot dogs. The day felt like a Norman Rockwell painting updated for wireless speakers. During cleanup, I found Ivy hunched over her phone, frown lines deep. "You okay?" I asked. She turned the screen. The management company had emailed a final itemized bill to the HOA, not to Roland personally, claiming early termination penalties totaling $18,000. Ivy blew a frustrated puff of hair. "They say we broke contract by demanding the board's resignation. They facilitated fraud," I said. "Let's make them prove those damages." That night, Caleb drafted a letter citing breach of fiduciary duty and threatened countersuit unless the company zeroed the balance and refunded service fees. 36 hours later, their general counsel replied with 2 sentences. "Balance waived, best wishes." 4 weeks before the small claims showdown, Roland's house went dark. Literally. The utility truck arrived at dawn, clipped the meter, and departed. Foreclosure notices surfaced in the county recorder's database. Public information Milo tracked. The bank, apparently, was tired of missed payments. Part of me felt pity. Another part remembered icy mornings when Roland scolded elderly Mrs. Prim for leaving her trash can curbside longer than 12 hours. Actions sprout consequences. Yet pity won a slice of territory when I learned Roland's teenage niece Harper lived with him while her parents worked overseas. Harper volunteered at the animal shelter and waved shyly whenever she biked past. I'd hate for her to suffer because her uncle mismanaged power and ethics, so I wrote a discreet email to the foreclosure trustee, offering copies of our cameras if squatters approached. The trustee replied gratefully. Harper temporarily moved in with a cousin across town. With Harper safe, empathy receded and the practical work resumed. Garrick discovered a state grant program rewarding HOAs that installed solar-powered streetlights. 2 previous applications under Roland had been rejected for incomplete paperwork. We resubmitted with proper drawings and won approval. The rebate equaled 75% of install cost, leaving only $4,200. A neighborhood bake sale plus the recovered topiary funds covered the rest. Kids loved twisting new LED fixtures to make windshield-wide superhero shadows on the asphalt. Court day arrived on a blue sky Tuesday. The small claims courtroom was utilitarian. Beige walls, fluorescent hum, rows of plastic chairs. Roland entered wearing an ill-fitting gray suit, eyes down. He carried a slim folder but no attorney. Pro se litigants stand on their own rhetorical feet. Caleb sat beside me, calm. Ivy and Milo occupied the gallery with Devon and 6 neighbors holding single-page printouts of the bylaws like script in a community play. The judge, a woman with silver streaks in her ponytail, called the case. Roland presented first, claiming I'd incited mass homeowner hysteria, and destroyed his professional reputation. His voice quavered. He admitted filing the 911 call but insisted he'd genuinely feared explosive noises. The judge asked if he'd verified those noises before dialing. Roland hedged, citing observational duty. Our turn. Caleb rose, clicked a laptop to project the porch footage. Silent except the click of the door. No explosive shouts. Then the 911 transcript scrolled on screen, highlighting exaggerations in yellow. Caleb introduced Devon's affidavit, the fraudulent invoices, the termination letter from the management company acknowledging Roland's misrepresentations. The judge's eyebrow climbed north each time Caleb rested his finger on a page. Finally, Caleb called me. I stated facts: refusal of voluntary inspection, immediate escalation, retaliatory fines. I ended by quoting Henderson v. Larkwood Estates, the appellate decision declaring false HOA fines unconscionable instruments of intimidation. Roland had no cross questions. He sank lower each minute, hands folding origami from his complaint. After a recess, the judge returned with a ruling. Roland's suit dismissed with prejudice. Our counterclaim proved. Damages awarded at $4,600 plus $420 costs payable within 45 days or subject to writ of garnishment. She recommended Roland attend an ethics course if he wished to avoid further civil exposure. Garrick whispered, "Checkmate," as we filed out. You'd think victory would taste like champagne. It tasted more like exhaustion and ginger ale. Winning is work. Collection is more work. Roland's employment status, suspended pending review, meant the wage garnishment might recover nickels monthly. Caleb advised patience, judgments accrue interest. Instead of dwelling, we pivoted toward restoration. The new board, Milo elected president, Ivy secretary, Garrick treasurer, drafted updated bylaws with clearer language. Interior inspections banned unless requested by the homeowner. Fines capped. All hearings recorded and held in the library. We circulated drafts, collected comments, and put Article 3 to a vote. 87% approved. A landslide unseen since the subdivision's founding. We celebrated with the first HOA meeting in open air, picnic style. Devon, now general counsel on a modest retainer, gave a 5-minute primer on parliamentary procedure, then joined a kickball game with neighbor kids. Someone rigged a projector onto a bedsheet between two maples for a dusk screening of The Goonies. Biscuit trotted from blanket to blanket collecting crusts. Even Mrs. Prim laughed when Garrick's toddler tried to feed her a dandelion. As stars blinked on, Ivy poured lemonade and said, "Remember when this place felt like detention?" I nodded. She tipped her cup toward the row of new solar lights, glowing amber instead of the old harsh sodium. Now it feels like a neighborhood. Yet one thread remained: restitution for everyone Roland had bilked. Garrick designed a spreadsheet to calculate proportional refunds. Overcharged fines would be repaid from reclaimed money. Any deficit would come from insurance. Most neighbors, touched by the spirit of renewal, voted to channel half their refund toward a shared amenity fund, a dog park, community garden, or maybe a splash pad. Democracy at work. Messy, but sweet. Meanwhile, Roland's criminal case trudged forward. He pled guilty to a reduced charge, paid a $2,000 fine, and agreed to 120 hours of community service, none of which could involve HOAs or accounting. The judge assigned him to the animal shelter on Saturdays, scooping litter boxes under Harper's supervision. Life writes its own irony. One brisk November morning, I visited the shelter to adopt a terrier mix as companion for Biscuit. Roland was there, wearing county-issued gloves, silently mopping a pen. Our eyes met. I expected bitterness. Instead, he nodded once, maybe gratitude that I'd spared Harper public spectacle. We would never be friends, but sometimes accountability is mercy wearing work boots. Winter draped the subdivision in quiet silver. Holiday lights twinkled along eaves, and for the first December in years, residents decorated without worrying a measuring tape would appear to scold bulb spacing. Ivy organized a cookie exchange. Milo dressed as Santa for driveway photo ops. Garrick engineered a low-cost snow melt sensor for the steep hill entry, preventing New Year fender benders. On Christmas Eve, I placed a small wrapped box on Ivy's porch, a brass key engraved "Community." Inside was a fob programmed to access my camera feed archive, a gesture of trust, proof that security and openness can coexist. Later, I found a tin of shortbread and a note in front of my door. "Thanks for turning fear into something we can be proud of." I hung the note on my fridge beside the original certified citation Roland had issued. kept as a reminder that vigilance beats complacency. Spring thaw brought the garden plot to life. Rows of tomatoes, peppers, and marigolds flourished in soil tilled by volunteers. Mrs. Prim managed the herb section, teaching teens how to harvest basil without damaging stems. Garrick installed a smart irrigation system tied to a weather app, reducing water bills. The local paper wrote a feature, praising the neighborhood's transformation from citation-plagued to collaboration-driven. One afternoon, the reporter asked me what sparked the change. I said, "Cameras exposed a lie, but neighbors chose the truth." She tilted her head. "So technology saved you?" I shook mine. "Cameras helped. Courage fixed the rest." By early summer, Milo planned a 4th of July carnival. He secured permits, rented bounce houses, and booked a food truck lineup. Fireworks were limited to fountains and sparklers per city ordinance. Lesson learned about safety. But the finale would be a projector montage celebrating community volunteers. Ivy compiled photos, Garrick soldering wires, Devin handing out hot cocoa at the caroling night, Harper teaching kids to groom senior shelter cats, even Roland quietly repainting graffiti on the park fence as part of service hours. Humility captured beneath a ball cap. The carnival drew crowds from neighboring subdivisions. Drones filmed the event, later edited into a promotional clip for the county tourism board. Property values ticked upward, but what mattered more was intangible. Parents unafraid to let children skateboard past dusk, elderly couples strolling under solar lamplight, conversations about ideas instead of infractions. Late that night, after tents folded and fireworks fizzled, I sat on my porch with biscuit at my feet and the terrier Peanut curled in my lap. Milo ambled over, handing me a root beer float. Fireflies stitched luminescent Morse code across the lawn. "Hard to believe a doorbell and a lie started all this," he mused. "Big mistake," I said. "Yeah," he grinned, clinking his plastic cup against mine. "Big blessing, too." In the hush that followed, I realized no camera was rolling, no documentation necessary. Some moments exist only to be lived. Friends, thank you. See you soon.